Testing, testing, testing. Testing, 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 testing. Hello? Testing, testing. Testing, 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 testing. Hello? Testing, testing.
Takes a while to set it all up.
Do you want to, the guys on the N5 are just literally stuck in standstill traffic. I'll just send them the link.
Yeah, why not? Who is it?
It's like all across the lot.
Give me the numbers.
Or if you just send a link to me and then I'll put it on the group.
Okay, well, I'll add you to it and then you can.
You sit in the cars.
You all set up and there's no one there to film?
Oh, You've added me to a group.
Just get up there.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I'm not dressed for it, man. Can't go live streaming.
Who's Rob Whittam?
You know, Yeovil?
Who's in Yeovil?
Why is he?
He's on call in Yeovil.
Oh, hold on. Is this a group every time?
There's a new group set up every week, depending on who's on call.
That's painful, isn't it?
Why?
How do you know who's on call?
Rob's
People
the guy
tell
who
us.
It looks like he's just graduated.
Yeah. I thought I was the youngest looking person on the deanery.
No, yeah,
He's stolen my fucking medal.
He may be fucking old, but he just looks like he's.
Yeah. No, I know.
He's not old, is he?
No, I don't think so. But
So what's happened? How did they get to that?
Sorry, I'll repost the link because I've added you a bit late. Haven't I?
Is it? Oh, it's this one. I found it. I've got the link.
Have you? Yeah. Yes. If you open that up, you should be able to.
Yeah, how do you get? Do you have to request the link?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean,
If
it's.
you're going to be on call, do we email you? And say,
Well, look, you know, on the email sent out, it said, "Let me know if you're on call."
does it? All right. Yeah.
You
I mainly just read lecture theatre. Yeah.
I'll put it in bold. What do you guys think about the? Apparently, the committee wants to send out the papers, make them accessible on the website rather than sending them out on emails.
I just think I didn't think that's the.
Are the papers actually, like, we haven't discussed a single paper the whole term.
Yeah.
And we've actually the rule was last time when we thought it was a good idea to send out papers with one review paper. Now we're getting fucking 2 every time. No one's reading them, I bet you, because I certainly haven't done it. And no one discusses them, so why read them?
I agree. Yeah.
Like, it's going back to the way it used to be, where you get fucking downloads of everyone's favorite review article based on whatever, and we never really. I don't know if I'm the only one, but it's.
And actually,
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I think if they're not even emailed to us, chances are that.
Who's coming up with these review articles?
Well, it depends. So often the speakers have papers that they like us send out, and if they don't, then me or Andy will usually come up, find what we think is a reasonable article to send out.
So the spinal one was good because there's the loaded classification and the severity score things. Those are important and relevant, and we discussed them.
Yeah.
Then what we have, the trauma papers are important, but we never discussed them, which is a shame. We should have discussed them.
Yeah.
The shoulder paper, we sort of have that nauseum, profa, and the clavicle stuff. It's relatively relevant, but we didn't really cover them in that much detail. You didn't have to read the whole fucking paper to. I just don't want it. My thinking is that if you got, I don't know about you, but when I was SC2, SC4, and I got those papers, they went into a fucking folder on my thing of need to read before FRCS, and never read them.
You've read them now. Before FRC, you've got 9 months now.
Yeah, exactly. They're still in the folder. They're still in the folder. They haven't moved from the folder.
Yeah, but do you mean how many of those papers are actually useful for the FLCS and actually you end up finding another paper that's better?
Well, the other thing you got to remember is that if you're going to be that guy, I'm certainly not that guy who's going to sit in his library and go, well, there is a study, the profa study you need to know about the whatever, but random studies that they distribute. No, you're not going to sit there and go, because the problem is going to be is you're going to get that one examiner who was on the fucking paper and knows exactly what was going on, and then he's going to rip his shit.
Yeah.
And you're going to wish to God you didn't read your
But is there an argument that you're going to be put in a position where you're asked to treat a patient or treat a case, and you're then going to say, I would treat it this way, knowing full well that there are 2 or 3 different ways you can treat it. And therefore you need to know the evidence.
you need to know.
So, if you're doing a, say, trapeziectomy, you've got to be able to quote Prof. Davis, not having to do your,
Mr. Field's doing a lecture in the BOA on how evidence-based medicine is just complete.
Oh yeah, you
Waste of fucking time.
Yeah, yes.
Have you read Surgery the Ultimate Placebo yet?
Not yet.
I think that's true. Everyone who's got.
I need to. It's in my reading list.
Oh yeah, really good.
Oh yeah, exactly.
The other one's sections on surgery.
Yeah.
What do you think that one paper is? limit. Did you? How's the meeting on Monday? What the fuck is are these lanyards?
From what?
And the lapel badges? And the lapel badges? Okay, the lighting's not good. It'll be better when the lighting comes up. It's not brilliant, obviously. Let's see. Who's watching this?
I'm just looking at it.
Can you see? Apparently yes. Although
If you click on the little map next to the timer.
this.
Oh yeah. You're the next one out.
I don't know. Rob, according to this, Rob was on it.
I'm a really passive producer.
What do you want?
Yeah, there you go. So it does increase. I don't know if it tells you who. It's difficult. I must admit, last year I got quite good habit because the paper was being sent out at least like a few days in advance. I was making a conscious effort to try and read at least the one page. Because
Or you can choose how to read it.
This is the thing where you can look online. PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So you can actually stream PowerPoint.
Do you think that's better than actually broadcasting?
It's all both.
Does anyone? Jenko, have you come from BORG? No, they're not forgotten.
But and next but actually
Just go on the Tuesday night. Yeah, I mean, this is trying to change the way it's written for me.
If you want my files, I remember.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll do it Tuesday.
Yeah, thank you. On that, but it's normal.
So
Who's working for him at the moment?
Who's in Bath at the moment?
I think the website is objection. But I think just papers go straight onto there, not being distributed by email.
Even less likely people are going to do it. So yeah, did they discuss that website?
They don't. Smithy was quite keen to get
Have you got Cowley's number? No, do you know what I mean?
Where's
give them 5 minutes.
Is Adam doing the job? Do you want Smith to Adam?
I might have it. Have you got his number?
398 889. Thanks for the invitation.
Oh yeah, you got it. Yeah. Well, it's not mine yet.
Who did it?
Sarah.
She made it by hand. Made it by hand.
Hang on. Hang on. 07533.
07533.
Yeah.
793.
Sorry. 793 889. Adam's that Adam Smith. Adam, says here. Yeah, no problem. Are you coming from Bath? Oh, was it? Yeah, we were just wondering where they went to. That's okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. They're stuck right in traffic. Yeah, Pearson, what are you guys gonna do? Do you think? Boxing like to stay down for the Saturday night?
Yeah, I think
That's why they came
Where's the nearest town, do you think?
Taunton's like 10 minutes drive.
It'd be nice to stay somewhere.
Nice.
Not even nice to somewhere new.
Yeah. There are, there's a few, sort of, Sarah's listed a couple of there are wild drives. Yeah, they're running late.
He probably enjoys a bit of it.
You'll never get it.
What we need to do something with Johnny's wedding. He finds for Nick to come for fucking dog.
Where did
He had accommodations. It was in the castle. Yeah, it was quite good. He was able to put up pretty much everyone. No. Yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have one today? What did you have one today? Oh, cool. Have you got a ticket? Oh, is that with the Allen? Have they got the benches? Oh, no.
Normally I'm the beverage. How was the
I've been before. I've really been. That's the second time. It's just like it's quite a nice day out. Yeah.
You guys all make sure that gets
Yeah, it's just quite a nice day out. Because you know the ground is literally like right on the other side of the river, and it's quite funny because it's a bit of like it's a bit of a shit ground, really. But it's quite good because it's all quite close to like the action.
like you're actually just watching a village.
It totally does, yeah, no. And then you've got like great players, like loads of ex-England players like, on the pitch. So it's just good. Appreciate it. Really?
You'll probably be there. I'll probably be there.
I just think you get much take up.
Is he their first choice fly off?
Yeah.
What, after that game at the weekend? He was playing.
He's back playing.
He was playing in that match.
He's not in Welsh.
Biggers, I think, for sure. Yeah, and then we just went out for dinner in Bath afterwards. No, we're particularly great, just like a little pie place.
The new Korean version fusion.
In Bristol. Oh, really? Wonderful. Korean version? Should we go there next month?
It's a bit.
Have we all got the wrong locations?
No, they're coming. They're stuck in traffic. Okay, good.
I'm sorry, but this travel question could be something aside of something more serious. I had a question. That's really
Who told you about that?
Yeah, exactly. Is it obvious? She looked a bit lost, yeah. I didn't, I had to say. The citizens appreciate it. It's a real weekend I think the critical moment actually, we all get
I think I'm going to try and get copies of those sorted, there's a regular thing. Just getting them a few canisters. I think the dean will fund it. Because it's a bit shit otherwise, isn't it? Like, if the shop's closed, there's nothing to get to drink. I think the dean will fund it. So, maybe through Karen.
You know someone that I think team had it?
Yeah. No, I think it's fair. It's I don't know why we've never had it. I think it's.
Suggest that even if they don't fund it, it's worth it.
Well, that's the other thing. We could do about 50 quid a week, so it's not bad. I think the dean will fund it. So I'm going to try and sort out for next week.
Talking about hiring the 66 bro, it's I think. We did ask him for how much would it cost to design the whole thing. Like how much for the whole thing? Just how many seats?
How's Fieldy? I was tempted to go back and do that.
Have you done it?
No, I haven't. No.
Go back and do it. Yeah. Well, I mean, I should have done more. You did get it back.
I always get you.
You do, how many lists do you actually do in Shanghai?
All day fire list, which is fantastic. Tuesday, Wednesday, morning. Thursday, Friday, I have that. I'll definitely go suggest you
because how many weekends have you do it?
I'm running 16.
One in 16 weekends. If Khaled doesn't come again today, if Khaled doesn't come again today, yeah. And Mo and Nick Mo.
One time I signed up.
Well, but actually, yeah, but surely by now,
You what?
I wonder if they're all.
Oh, I have paid checks.
What was actually closed? Children 13.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
I think you want to come down. Otherwise you can't throw things.
I'd rather not come to Bristol every day.
Can I just say, that wasn't a suggestion.
Where are you going? Are you moving? Give them the mic.
So I think we need a bit of segregation as well. So we need the people who are going to be taking the exam in the next 2 years over here. And the people who are at the earlier stages over here. So if you're going to take the exam in the next 2 years or so, 6 months, 2 years, further down, as in I know you are. Further down. I want no one further back than 3 rows, because I can't throw that far, so you have to come down. Okay? Terribly good. Really.
Special stuff here.
These are some of the brightest minds of your generation.
Yeah.
We're not being five. Did you not pay
Every time I come there.
No, that's one to the
Okay, so conservative management of power structures. Well, some of you who work with me will know this is a subject dear to my heart. Okay, I'll declare my biases. Sadly, I'm not paid by anyone for anything, apart from the NHS a little bit, but my biases you want to know. So I'm an under-operator. You all have biases. You need to know your biases, and you should be prepared to declare them. So I tell my patients my biases, so that what did this show? That show, there's a way to point there. So they know. So if I tell them to have an operation, they probably need an operation because I'm an under-operator. And you need to tell them your biases, okay? That's going to be one of the things that will come in your generation. So I'm biased. I tell my patients them, I tell them I'm under. I think we do too much surgery. Particularly once you're younger, you believe in the power of surgery, and in some specialties, you believe in the power of surgery. And because of that, I overstate what non-operative treatment can do. I know that. I think there are times I think probably should have operated that. I've overstated that. And therefore, I sometimes fail patients by not operating when I should have done. I think I do that much more than I fail them by operating when I shouldn't. But I do that. So I don't believe that I get it right every time. I try to, but I don't believe I get it right every time. And any of you who think you do,
you're in real trouble because you don't have insight, and that's dangerous as sin. Okay. So most hand fractures can be treated non-operatively. Nicholas, not Tristan Barton, said this, 1984. He did an awful lot of very good work in hand surgery in a previous generation, and that still holds true. So what is the aim of treatment of a hand fracture? So you should know the aim of your treatment. When you tell a patient, I recommend this, you should tell them what the aim is of that treatment. Because if you're aiming there, and they want to go there, they're unlikely to be happy. You may find that you aim there and you end up here. We've done that before, we've all done that. And they might be very happy, but it's very unlikely to be the same place that they want to go. Okay? So I would say we want bone union in a good enough position with good soft tissue gliding. Right? So bone union, we're not responsible for that. Who is responsible for bone union in the hand? Sorry?
The good Lord.
The good Lord, thank you very much indeed, or whatever religion you fancy, or nature or whatever, okay? Every bone in the hand will heal, apart from scaphoid. At least a few people are awake. Okay? Yeah, so it always heals. So you're not trying to get bone healing, right? That isn't your problem. So when you look at an X-ray, do you look for callus in the hand? Any of you look for callus in the hand? I'm pleased to hear that, or you've no idea what I'm talking about. Okay, no, you never do, you never see it apart from some person who's come and they've punched something and they come 6 weeks later and they've been moving it. We don't look for callus in the hand, we don't really see it. The bones always heal. So that isn't what we're trying to do. We're not trying to get them to heal. Sometimes you're doing that. Typically, you're trying to get the bone to heal. We're trying to get it to heal in a reasonable alignment, okay? So you've all been told all about anatomical reduction of fractures, haven't you? Who's not heard of that expression? Anatomical reduction of a fracture, right? Who has ever reduced a fracture anatomically? Put your hand up. You have. You've reduced a fracture anatomically.
Not that. Well, yeah.
You have, okay? So that's a very interesting premise, because as it breaks, right, okay, it doesn't break, snap. It has some plastic deformation, and then it breaks. So you get the realignment, and you reverse that plastic deformation, and you still get it completely anatomical at a microscopic level.
Not at a microscopic level.
So you haven't reduced it anatomically.
Not a microscope.
No, you haven't reduced it anatomically. So I think it's very important to establish. Don't say things that are impossible. I will reduce your fracture anatomically. It cannot be done. It's just stupid. Really stupid. Okay? Because if you try to aim to do something you cannot achieve, you are bound to fail. Right? Bound to fail. So you're only ever going to reduce the fracture well enough. And then when you understand that, you've got to know what good enough is. Now, we all know when it looks great. Okay, you've all reduced a fracture really well and looks fabulously, oh, marvellous, I'm like good. Okay, we've all done that, and we've all reduced it and thought, I hope if we twist the X-ray just like this, it'll look okay. We've all done that, okay, and if you haven't yet, you will, right? But it's never anatomical. You're only ever good enough. So you need to know what good enough is. And you need, if you're going to fix fractures, to be in there going, this is what I'm aiming for, this is good enough. So in the distal radius, we know, we measure all those angles, we know what good enough is. But still people accept reductions that are outside that. And then they write satisfactory reduction. How do you do that? It's just self-delusion. Okay. So soft tissue gliding, this is really important in the hand. It's instantly worse following surgery. Okay? What, if you are a piece of tendon, what is the thing you most love in the whole world to embrace?
Metal.
Titanium, yes. There's nothing a piece of tendon likes to bond to other than titanium. It bonds to it with a passionate love greater than any of you have your enamorata, okay? It will bind straight to it. As soon as you operate, you are creating stiffness. Now, maybe you can overcome it by operating. You can make them glide better because they're going to have so much problem otherwise. But particularly in the hand, stiffness is our problem. Malalignment isn't a problem, really. It's stiffness. And it's very difficult to work it through. You've got a big joint like the knee, you can really drive it one through, do manipulations and so on like that. In the hand, it doesn't work. So your default position should be non-operative treatment, provided the alignment is reasonable. And we can argue about that, but that's where you should be aiming, right? So if we think about the Montgomery principles of consent, by and large, you should be going, are we going to do well enough with this fracture? Mostly we are, therefore we shouldn't be fixing it. So these are the things I'm going to talk about. Not all of them in great detail, but I'll run through them. And in some of them, we have some quite good science. So we have a reasonable way of knowing that that's probably the right answer. And in some of them, we don't have much science, but I've got bags of prejudice, and I'll tell you. But I'll try and differentiate. It doesn't mean I'm right, and I might be saying something different in 5 years' time, and so you need to know that. But I'll try and tell you what I know. First of all, what fractures do need surgery? I'm not saying none of them need surgery, okay? I'm not a hand physician, though I do a lot of positionally stuff. So open injuries, they're probably going to need an opera, but not every open injury needs a lot. Displaced intra-articular fractures, and that's got a question mark, because whilst that's much more relevant in the lower limb, it's much less material in the upper limb. And we'll talk about concave and convex fractures later. Irreducible fractures. So if you can't get some sort of reasonable reduction, then you're going to need to do it. Multiple injuries, you might need to do. That might be an indication. It's often not. And then combined bone and soft tissue injuries, you're going to probably have to do something. So even I would fix that. Okay? I wouldn't put plates and screws on. But that's what we did. There are some good and bad bits of that. We then had to supplement it with bone graft. Subsequently, I like to do that delayed. But there are fractures that need fixing, clearly. Most of them don't, and you need to know the ones that don't. But almost above all else, conservative management is not no treatment. Now, I like clinics. I like seeing my patients. I like it when they do well. I find it stressful when they do badly. But I'm happy seeing patients in clinic. I'm happy seeing them very regularly and fine-tuning what they do. And that is what you have to do if you're going to treat people not. If you're going to if you don't really like clinics, probably shouldn't be a hand surgeon. You should probably be a hip surgeon and just operate. But if you're going to do non-operative treatment, you've got to be prepared to see people fairly regularly. And your die is cast within 4 to 6 weeks. Within 4 to 6 weeks, they've either done well or they're not. And there's often not a lot you can do to correct it. So that crucial period. And psychologically, for the patient, you've seen them regularly, talk to them regularly, give them consistent messages, you and the physio, they'll be happier. So, great relief and careful follow-up. Yeah, maybe weekly for 3 or 4 weeks. I'll often see patients weekly for 3 or 4 weeks. May not need to see them for very long, but to make sure we're getting it right. I like, in my clinics, those who work with, I like to see the follow-ups, often much more than the new patients. Follow-ups are where problems go wrong, things are not picked up. New patients get it slightly wrong, you can often correct it. Expectation is very important, okay? I don't think we do enough of this. If you say to your patient, this is what I think will happen. In 3 weeks, I'm expecting you to have achieved this. Or next week, or in the next 2 weeks, what are you going to get? We should be telling our patients, most of them bright enough, they can understand, and then when they're not achieving that, they'll come back to you and say, oh, you said I'd get this, but I haven't. And you can pick things up. You may need to splint them, you may need to strap them, you may need to plaster them. You may use the posi splint. I personally think it's work of the devil. My colleague here, Alex Cowie, thinks it's very good. So when I see the patient, we have a shared practice clinic. So when I see his patients, I take them off and drop it in the bin. And when he sees mine in plastering, he takes them off. And there's a different way of doing it. There isn't only one way. Different people will have different views. I completely accept that. I'm happy with that. Okay? But you need to understand a range of views. Therapists are very important. You should be very happy to re-x-ray people. You're not looking for bone healing. You're looking for problems. So, metacarpal fractures, metacarpal neck fracture, the boxer's fracture. There's evidence. Strub and Al did a pseudo-randomized trial. and they showed there was no difference between fixing them and non-optimal treatment. Westbrook, this is from Tim Davis's unit in Nottingham, that's where Nicholas Barton worked. They did a similar study. None of these were perfect RCTs, but essentially the outcomes were the same, but you've got more complications with surgery. So there's really almost no indication for operating unless they're privately insured, okay? Because you're very pushed to make them better. And that's your problem with the consent process. You can persuade these people to have an operation. They're not terrible. But if you really tell them, we do nothing, you'll have a drop knuckle and excellent functioning, why would anyone have an operation? Okay? So there's rarely a need. I think if it's angled 70 degrees, I'll give them a push, and I think you can correct it. And then probably above 50 degrees, they may get a bit of a problem, but it's infrequent.